Hi, welcome to our special Q&A recording of The New Corporation, the unfortunately necessary sequel, one of the 50 official selection titles at the 45th Toronto International Film Festival. This film plays as part of Tiff Docs, which is generously sponsored by A&E Indie Films. As part of Share Her Journey, Tiff's commitment to supporting women behind and in front of the camera, we're thrilled to spotlight the incredible films by women at this year's festival, including Jennifer Abbott, who directed the film you've just seen. My name is Steve Gravestock, or directed the film you've just seen along with Joel Bakan. My name is Steve Gravestock. I'm senior international programmer. I'm thrilled to be here with Joel Bakan and Jennifer Abbott. Couple of things before we start. Thanks to our audience for joining us. As an organization still impacted by COVID, we need the support of our audience so that we continue to present films to future generations and preserve these diverse and important voices. I want to remind you guys, this is very important. This film is eligible for the People's Choice Award. Vote for your favorite films at tiff.net/vote. And without any further ado, please welcome Joel and Jennifer.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much for the film. This is one of the films I was most excited about this year. I'm thrilled we're getting a chance to screen it. The film is, of course, a sequel to one of the most influential and I think acclaimed Canadian documentaries ever made, The Corporation, which was released in 2003, which is almost 17 years ago, I guess now. Was there a specific incident which sparked the sequel? Was it a cumulative? Was there a specific germ that led you guys to make the film?
I mean, I started feeling the itch around 2014, 2013, which was around the 10-year anniversary of The Corporation. And I think it was a number of things that were coming together. One was that corporations had really sort of gone down the road of presenting themselves as benevolent entities that were, that their whole purpose was to try to save the world. And that contrasting with the fact that the world was really going into some very difficult places in terms of climate change, in terms of inequality, in terms of the rise of right-wing populism. And at the same time, big tech was a phenomenon that wasn't really even on the horizon as the huge thing it would become when we made the first film. So there are all these factors that sort of suggested that the world had changed qualitatively and that it had changed in ways that were deeply connected to the themes that we looked at in the first film. But it was just an entirely different corporate world we were looking at, one that was in fact a corporate world rather than just a world that had corporations within it.
Jennifer,
sure. For me, it was a little different because I was very, very reluctant to make the sequel, just because the first film was just such a monster of a film. And also there's the pressure of a sequel. And I didn't feel called to do it until Trump was elected. When Trump was elected, everything changed for me in the sense that the veil was lifted and there was no longer this illusion that government and corporations weren't completely colluding to rig the system. So for me, it was that moment. So not cumulative at all, quite instant. Yeah.
I think in many ways the film is a little different from its predecessor. I think it's which tend to be, I think, a little more diagnostic and ruminative, maybe philosophical. The new film seems to have a much more activist bent, and I'm guessing from your remarks, Jennifer, that was especially in the second half. I think second half of the corporation, the new corporation, it's almost a call to arms in a way. I mean, it sounds like that was in your thinking from the very beginning, from what you were saying, Jennifer?
Yeah, I mean, I think, for me, it's a very different time, sadly. And that's, why we subtitled it The Unfortunately Necessary Sequel. The first film, in addition to being different in the ways you point out, also has a layer of humor and cheekiness that this film doesn't. And it's not that we didn't play with humor and cheekiness more in this film. It's just that it just didn't feel right. As Joel was saying earlier, the existential crises that we face just can't be understated. And we just feel that this is just such a critical moment in time. And in that sense, it's like an extraordinary moment in time to be alive. But the stakes are so high. So I think Joel and I, as filmmakers, are both committed to using our film to enhance public discourse about these important issues and hopefully create change. So absolutely, I think it's a call to action, and we were very clear that we wanted it to be so right from the get-go.
Joel, do you want to add?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I agree with all of that. It was crucial to really provide not just a call to action, but a way to action. And that's what we tried to do. I think in the first film, we were a bit more eclectic in some ways. We were like, you have to get off the couch, you have to do something. I think in this film, we were a little more prescriptive about what needs to be done, what we need to challenge, but also how to challenge it. And I think one of the important messages of the film is that we don't need to give up on the democratic institutions that currently govern us. What we need to do is change them. We need to detach them from the influence and power of corporations and make them work truly democratically. So the message of hope is that we can actually start working with some of the pieces that are currently in place. It's not a question of just, there's nothing we can do and have to rip everything apart and start from the ground up. Having said that, there's a lot of work that needs to be done.
I think that's one of the things I really love about the movie too, is that it ends with a lot of these sort of great, sometimes younger, sometimes voices that have people that have just come to national or international attention. Ada Kulu, I'm sure I'm going to mispronounce her name, Ada Kulu, Kishwana Savant from Seattle, people like Katie Porter, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I mean, it really kind of refutes that notion that Bannon mentions in the film, where he basically argues that that the right wing, and that's and not just the right wing, not conservative, but far right, like extreme right voices had the momentum. And what the film indicates is that that's not true, that there are all these, the moment where Katie Porter dissects Jamie Dimon is just amazing in the movie. And, and the same with AOC when she does it as well. And Savant's like a really intelligent speaker, and also writers like an Angura Hardis as well. So do you want to comment on that? Did you know these guys before the film? Did you find them in the filmmaking? How did that work out?
Yeah, I mean, I have been following these folks for quite some time, because one of the other things that became clear around 2010, 2011, 2012 is that when we made the first film, the right had the momentum. I mean, the Tea Party, populism on the right, the complete sort of corporate takeover of everything. It's almost like after our first film, these things just got way worse. Part of the reason for the unfortunately necessary sequel. But I think as we made this film, what was clear is that the momentum was actually fizzling on the right. And I believe that. I think Bernie Sanders' run is an eminent example of just the amount of popular sort of energy there is behind somebody who wants to kind of do something truly socially democratic. And I think the movement, the environmental movement and the climate movement, and what we've just seen, the uprisings in the wake of these brutal police killings of African-American men, George Floyd and Blake. And so, what we're seeing, I think, and this is what we say at the end of the film through our interview subjects, through people like Anand and Heather McGee and Vandana Shiva, is that this is the moment of opportunity. This is the moment where the project of justice and humanity actually has a chance to gain real momentum. And to me, that's a very encouraging and hopeful thing.
Jennifer, do you want to add?
Sure. I agree with everything that Joel said. I would add that, prior to the George Floyd uprising, yes, we documented this groundswell of resistance to corporate rule, and each individually so inspiring. But I think for the George Floyd uprising and the speed and the momentum of that movement to challenge systemic racism, so to challenge the system, and to see colonial statues toppled, and the funding of various police and hospitals questioned, all these things, for us, I think it really gave a lot of weight to what we are calling Act 3. It actually tipped things almost in the favor of those challenging corporate rule, or at least it feels that way to me. Prior to that, to the George Floyd uprising, yes, we had documented all of these other things, but as I say, I think the George Floyd uprising just gave it the weight that Act 3 needed to be so authentically hopeful, to end the film on that note, which is really what we wanted to do, but we wanted to do it authentically, right? So it was, for me, it was absolutely crucial to include.
I think it's really, I think it's a real testament to what you guys did, that you were able to, or how you were working, that you were able to incorporate events that were so recent into the film. I mean, it really does, even though there were weeks, maybe, a few months in terms of COVID, you've incorporated it. And I think it really sort of, one of the interesting things about it is it really does, it's an extension of the structure and the critique that was already in the film, which I think is, shows its deep relevancy, I suppose. But, go ahead. Do you guys want to?
Well, I think, we thought we were finished, right? and then COVID happened. And, COVID just laid bare the injustices of the system. And we couldn't not include it. Had we not included it, I think the film would just lack contemporary relevance. Mm-hmm. And then similarly, we thought that the film was finished, and then the George Floyd uprising happened. And Joel and I argued very, very strongly to have the time needed to add a section to include the uprising. So yeah, we just kept thinking the film had ended, and then it didn't. But those two instances, we could of course just try and include contemporary events forever, but those, obviously the pandemic and the uprising, they are of a magnitude really in our lifetimes that haven't really been seen.
Yeah, my cutoff point was World War III. I mean, I said, look, if World War III happens, maybe we'll, open the can again and see about adding a few things to the film. But anything short of that, after the uprisings, we've got to just send this thing in.
Cool. I mean, it's just, I'm, the way you guys address COVID-19, it really does sort of deal with the whole privatization of medicine, and, which is really, I mean, there's all those reports out of the States, and I think in other countries too, where just to get a test was thousands and thousands of dollars, which will just mean that the virus will spread wildly because people won't pay for it or can't pay for it. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say absolutely, and I think one of the problems with the time crunch that we faced is that we were actually able to deal with COVID throughout the film. In other words, you just reminded me, we could put references to it in our section about privatization and about tax cuts and all of that. So we kind of were able to see that throughout the film, but we were and I would have loved to have done that with the issue of racial injustice that was so poignantly put on the table by the uprisings in the wake of George Floyd's police killing. But we had simply run out of time, and so there is some, but it would have been wonderful to have been able to see that uprising and those issues more deeply through the rest of the film, as we had with COVID.
Yeah, I mean, you do. I mean, the COVID thing, you do connect it to the systemic racism too, because you talk about the frontline workers as well.
Yeah, we did what we could within those constraints, and I feel good about it. But yeah, another 2 or 3 months, but then we wouldn't be talking to you. We'd still be making our films. So.
Well,
and thank goodness we're not.
Maybe for the next one, I do want to. One of the, I was watching the corporation as well to sort of prepare, and watching your film again as well too. But the new film again, I think for the third time. But the one of the things I wanted to ask was, and this will have to be our last question, I'm afraid, because we're being asked to wrap up. But you guys interview a lot of corporate types who, I mean, and they frequently, they go through their rhetoric, and it's like, for instance, at Davos and places like that, but also, with people like John Brown and oil executives, do you ever think they actually believe that rhetoric or that spin? Or, I mean, what's your take on because they're quite skilled, it's, doling this stuff out, but it's, I'm always wondering how you guys think, whether they believe it or not.
I think in most cases they do, and that's what makes it so dangerous. I think that what they've done in their own consciousness is resolve the cognitive dissonance between what they're doing and what beliefs they espouse by simply saying that the framework that they're working in, the institutional framework of the corporation, sets the boundaries for their thinking about things like social good and the environment. And then they forget that they've set those boundaries. It just becomes their consciousness. So their consciousness and the constraints of their institutional environment are wedded in that way. And to that extent, they're being sincere, I think. If you had a mind scan and could go into their brain, I think you would see that they actually do believe what they're saying. But that makes them hold to it that much more strongly. It'll make them reject many of the arguments of the film. It makes them say, hey, I'm a good person. I'm trying to do the best I can in this context. So what's your problem? And so they miss the fact that they're working within this invisible to them ideological framework. But I think to call them insincere and dishonest actually underestimates the nature of the problem.
Jennifer, do you want to add anything?
Sure. Well, I would agree with that. And also just to say, obviously there's huge variation, but I think what might exacerbate the situation is something we at one point in time discussed covering, but didn't, is that, if you're the richest man in the world, you're likely surrounded by sycophants who are, constantly reaffirming how special and talented and all these other things that you are. And I think that it's called hubris syndrome, apparently, when you really have a distorted frame of reference of the world. And I'm not saying every CEO is like that at all, but certainly I think we witnessed some of them are. What's that?
But some presidents, or at least one.
Oh God, oh, absolutely, absolutely. And some CEOs, without question. So I think there's that dynamic as well. But absolutely, some of them are very sincere, but humans are so good at self-rationalization. We all do it, and some of us are better than others.
Well, I think that really sort of points to the how timely the film is, and how with a kind of essential viewing it is, because it really does sort of speak truth to those kind of those in power and those people who it tries, injects truth in a conversation that isn't always about truth. It's about rhetoric and ideology. And thank you guys so much for bringing the film to us. And thanks everybody for watching.
Yeah, thank you everybody for watching. Thank you so much.
Thank
it's our
you.
honor. Thank you.